Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the panel. Establishing a clear and thoughtful regulatory framework isn't just important for the digital assets and technologies that already exist. By creating much-needed clarity, we would be facilitating the development of blockchain, expanding the potential uses of all sorts of tokens, and creating safeguards for new technologies created by innovators here in the United States. I have said before in the Financial Services Committee that I view the digital assets as the new space race. Like the challenges of the last century, there's no reason why the United States should not lead the way. Mr. Schoenberger, I'd like to ask about distributed ledger technology. Distributed ledger technology has been described as a foundational technology like the internet or electricity, in which the adoption of the technology is gradual, incremental, and steady, but utterly transformative to society and the economy. What does this idea tell us about the future of distributed ledger technology and the digital assets that power them?
Thank you very much for the question, Congresswoman. I think the comparison with the internet is the best one here, because if we look back, what made the internet really take off was the open standards and protocols that were enabled by a framework of regulation that allowed this. That framework tried to understand the potentials of these technologies and cater to them. We think that Web3 technologies offer the same potentials and benefits. And we also think that we are about there where the internet was 25 years ago. So no one knows what will come from this, but the potential is huge. And what we need is certainly legal certainty around these questions. And I'd very quickly like to comment on what Congressman Torres mentioned, because that was exactly our journey here. We tried to go a process together with SEC staff from a security that DOT once was when we sold it for fundraising purposes to a non-security. And while that process sort of worked, it took 3 years, and still after putting in all that effort, the Web3 Foundation in the end was left without any tangible validation in its hands. So this very clearly shows that we need legal certainty by statute.
Thank you. And switching to our securities laws, the ultimate purpose of U.S. securities laws is to solve for the problem of information asymmetry. Thus, if an existing disclosure regime is not producing information that is valuable to digital asset purchasers, the ultimate purpose of U.S. securities laws is in fact not being met. Mr. Durgee and then Mr. Santori, do you agree with this characterization?
Very much so, yes.
Yes, Congresswoman, I do.
And for you both, how can we create a disclosure regime that will actually solve the problem of information asymmetry?
I'll go ahead and start.
Sure.
Yeah. I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. We're in a situation that's extremely problematic. The disclosure regime is contradictory, and it makes it incredibly difficult to build a business in the United States with that level of contradictory regulatory frameworks. So until those disclosures are made clear, we're going to continue to have a lot of ambiguous frameworks that companies are trying to build on, which is ultimately why they're leaving the United States and moving offshore.
I would add that, in fact, there is precedent here. MiCA, the Marks and Cryptocurrency Assets regulation that's developing in Europe, lays out clear disclosure rules, and they put those disclosure rules on the people who are best suited to make those disclosures, the projects themselves. Then they require the exchanges like us to make those available to our users. It's a sensible approach. It's tailored to the actual risks of digital assets. We're encouraged by it.
And finally, in 2020, the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco determined that 1 in 8 Americans purchased digital assets. The study also found that Americans would strongly prefer to engage with digital assets through regulated institutions. These statistics make it clear that digital assets are here to stay, and Americans want to engage with the digital asset ecosystem in a safe manner. Mr. Culkin, Mr. Durgee, Mr. Santori, given these statistics, how important is it that Congress act to establish the well-regulated digital asset marketplace?
Every day that we don't act, we continue to fall behind all the other jurisdictions that are not only moving past us, but accelerating.
I think it's very important, and I think we can draw from the experience of the Dodd-Frank Act, where jurisdiction was shared between the SEC and the CFTC in a successful way.
I agree, and moving forward now allows us here in the United States at Kraken to plan for the future, which, well, is coming quick.
Thank you. I yield back.